Good morning, Amy Jacobson here, Jim Urio. We are in for Dan Proft here on Chicago's Morning Answer. And tonight, AM 560 will be carrying President Trump's speech to the nation. We believe it will be about the continued war in Iran because yesterday U.S. launched another round of strikes on Iranian military targets. And he held a Situation Room meeting considering resumption of heavier attacks on Iran. Here's the president.
Are you giving Iran a deadline before you start bombing bridges?
I don't like giving deadlines, but they pretty much know. They know the story.
So are you meeting?
They better behave.
They better behave. With more on this, let's welcome back to the program Scott McKay, publisher at Hayride.com, senior editor at The American Spectator, and author of the books Blockbusters and his new book, Necessary Men. Good morning, Mr. McKay. How are you?
Hey, how are you?
Good. So what are you expecting to learn from Trump's speech to the nation tonight?
Well, I don't know what he can say about Iran that will change anything, make anything different. I mean, saying that the Iranians better behave, like, I get it, but they're Iranians. They're not going to behave. Yes, we have to go to the peace table with these people. And, we're, as Americans, we're kind of spoiled because we think about World War II, where you were able to get more or less an unconditional surrender out of Germany and Japan. And so, that's our standard for whether we win a war or not. That's not how you win a war. Generally speaking, you do negotiate a settlement of a war. Problem is, you can't negotiate with people who think that if they cause enough trouble, an imam who's 1,200 years old is going to climb up out of a well and perfect the world. And that's who Iran is. And so, I don't know exactly how you negotiate a deal with those people that they'll stick to. So,
but I feel like we've been here before. I mean, haven't we been here before? It's supposed to be a week and then a month, and now it's, whatever. It's nothing. I feel like they keep moving the line in the sand.
Oh, they totally do. The thing is this is not. I mean, you can't blame Trump for this. Iran is the utterly unreasonable neighbor that causes trouble for everyone and can't be reasoned with. What do you do? I mean, generally speaking, you sell your house and move. The problem is that we can't really do that. We don't really live in the neighborhood, but the fact of the matter is these guys will cause trouble forever. Like, they are the world's burden at this point. And at some point that regime has got to go away. And the question for us is, are you really interested in doing what needs to be done to make that regime go away?
So, Scott. Oh, sorry. I thought you were done. Didn't mean to step on you. No, because
no, that's okay.
I just want to say a couple things and get your comment on the two, because I believe that everybody who's reporting on this war, including the administration, and this is not even a diss on Trump, any administration, has some sort of propaganda bias whenever they speak about the war. So to me, the only thing that matters is the truth and price of oil. And that's what I watch to get the news. And oil right now signals that this is not, it's not great, but it's not a big deal either. But my question is more about, is the thesis of this war was that Iran was angling towards getting nuclear capabilities, ballistic capabilities to transport those. Is there real genuine proof that that was the case, that they were getting close?
Well, I put it this way. They told us how close they were getting.
Okay.
That's unless you think Witkoff is a liar. I mean, apparently they sat at the table and said, we have enough nuclear material to make 11 bombs. You can't stop us from doing it. To hell with you. And that was the opening piece of the negotiations. In other words, they put us in a position where we pretty much had to do what we've done. Now, part of the argument here is that apparently Israel had this deal going where they were going to, turn Ahmadinejad and bring him back to power. And get some sort of different kind of regime in charge, and none of that panned out. There was also some idea that the Kurds were going to march on Tehran and knock the regime out, and that didn't happen. I know we tried to funnel a bunch of weapons through the Kurds, and something happened that I don't know if they pocketed the weapons and thanks for everything. I don't know. I don't know how all that happened, but efforts were made to try to dislodge this regime. And at some point, you do have to look at the Iranian people and say, guys, you're going to have to put the effort in. And yes, it's difficult, but you created this problem by letting these people run your country. And that everybody's kind of treating the Iranian people with kid gloves here. And I get it because, obviously it's an oppressed 90 million people that are, under the thumb of the most incredible psychopathic regime that's ever existed. But where is your life, your fortune, and your sacred honor here? I mean, something needs to be done. And the only way that regime goes away is internally. We are not going to put our entire military on the ground in Iran and run a draft and soak up every 18-year-old kid in America to go send them to the Persian Gulf. We're not going to do that. The Iranians know we're not going to do that, and so they're not going to negotiate in good faith as a result of this. The only way this goes away is for the Iranian people to suck it up and go get these guys. And I know that's a big ask, but it's what's going to have to happen if we're going to make this problem go away.
Yeah, Scott McKay, that's who we're speaking with, publisher of Hayride.com and Spectator. Somebody texted into the show, do you think President Trump's going to announce that we're going to have troops on the ground? No, says J.D. Vance, our vice president, when he was on the Joe Rogan show.
If the Iranian people want to rise up and change their government, that's up to them. But we're not going to send 150,000 ground troops in order to accomplish a change in a regime unless the people on the ground themselves want to accomplish that outcome. Now, we're not going to send the troops in regardless, but to propose sending in the troops, you're basically saying that the U.S. military should do the job for the Iranian people. We're not in that business anymore. We're just not.
So how do we motivate the Iranians to help themselves?
Running guns into Iran is something that people don't want to do. It's probably the least bad option if you're going to turn that regime over. That would be something I would probably leave to the Israelis to run. But on the other hand, I'm not sure that Israel has done all that great a job in this war in terms of meeting the expectations that they set. So, I don't want to come off as the negative guy here. But I think there's a term that the Israelis actually invented. It's called mowing the lawn, which is, when you can't actually go and defeat these enemies, you just you go and you beat them up for a while and it calms things down, knowing that it's going to get worse again and you're going to have to go back and beat them up again. That's kind of where we are with Iran. We can knock out as much of their military capability as we can knock out. And then it's not worth it to go any further, so we'll just wait for the necessity to pop back up to do this again. And I think that's where we are. It's not a solution anybody wants. And then, the flip side of this, Jim, you were talking about the price of oil. The flip side of this is that everybody builds a pipeline so they don't have to transport oil through the Strait of Hormuz. And that is happening. Ultimately, the only way you can negate this threat is to make it irrelevant. When the Iraqis and the Kuwaitis and Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, when all of those guys don't have to transport oil through the Strait of Hormuz because it goes into a pipeline and it comes out at, Haifa or Aqaba or wherever, or Yanbu, and then that's how oil gets transported and it no longer goes through the Strait of Hormuz, that's it. I think there's some islands in and around the Strait of Hormuz that are going to be occupied by American troops and Gulf state troops that, where they're going to have a lot bigger military presence to govern the Strait of Hormuz. You will have that. And I think that may be something that Trump talks about tonight.
Yeah, and I'm glad that President Trump ditched the idea of a toll during the Straits of Hormuz. So let's move on to the Democratic Socialists of America. They have a new platform, Scott McKay and Jim Uriel. They want to abolish the U.S. Senate, the presidency, and the United States Supreme Court.
Whenever people are like, oh my God, they want to get rid of the president, I was like, well, I don't know what we would call it in the future. We could call it the head honcho of whatever, We have a feminism section that is trans-liberatory and also socialist feminist.
Everybody sees that, that Trump is super evil. I mean, every president since the founding of the country has been super evil, but somehow we have one that is even more evil.
So what is your response to that, Scott McKay?
Well, instead of a president, we'll have a general secretary. And if you think Trump is evil, wait till you see what the general secretary is like. We're going to trade Trump out for Pol Pot. And if you're a Democratic socialist, you might think that's a win. But guess what? Pol Pot takes all the useful idiot Democrat socialists and he shoots them into a ditch. That's what true communism is. We've seen it over and over and over again. And these people don't realize what they're doing. I mean, if you go and you look at who the Democratic Socialists of America are running, those are not the Joe Stalins, all right?
No.
Those are the people who get shot into a ditch the minute that the communists take over.
Amen.
So,
Scott,
they all had masks on, too, like it was COVID all over again, and they were grossly out of shape, blue hair, pink hair. I mean, it's...
There is a professor
trying to decide policy.
You guys might think it's funny. There's a professor from a college professor named Peter St. Onge. I know him a little bit, and he wrote a piece about how in the old days that a protest, like if I was a 19-year-old young man, I may show at some protest just to meet protesting women and pretend I was passionate about a specific topic. And nowadays, these are not the women you necessarily want to meet who are going to these socialist protests at all. I will say there's an element of it that's economic that explains some of this stuff too, is that there really was a K-shaped recovery after 2020. And a lot of the 60% who do not own assets, let's call it the 50% who do not own assets, all they got was a higher grocery bill. Well, everybody, the 20% who owned all the assets got appreciation and became rich. There really is an economic underlying thing. But do you think that can be reversed? And how are we going to stop this socialist nonsense? Which, by the way, the only difference between socialism and communism is that socialists have a smile on their face when they're perpetrating these crimes, and communists take the smile away. That's what my research has determined.
Well, what I would say the only difference between socialism and communism is time.
Yeah, bingo.
Because you give it long enough, and the smile has to go away because people get really dissatisfied with the results of socialism, and so to hold on to power, you have to start killing people.
Amen.
But I agree on the K-shaped recovery. I think it's a problem that probably takes a while to resolve. And really needs more reform than we have the political will for. But eventually the economy does recover this stuff. The problem that you have is that you have let the hard left take over all of these cultural institutions that shape young minds. And that's a long-term problem that really needs to be resolved by defunding a bunch of these institutions that create Democratic socialists. We're paying for this by letting leftists run all of the universities and put these kids through a curriculum that teaches them how terrible America is, and then gives them no skills by which they can realize an American dream. When you're better off going to become a plumber than to get a master's in gender studies, And the plumber's making 90, like when he's 24, and the chick with the master's in gender studies can't find a job and is still pouring coffee at 24. Like, that's where you run into an issue. And you do actually have that issue because that's what's happening with Generation Z right now.
Well, yeah. And then if you look at the local
boys
level.
Don't go to college.
Yeah, sorry for interrupting you, Scott. But at the local level, at Chicago Public Schools, they're teaching Chicago police torture. And people are learning about John Burge, who used to be a detective here, a police officer in Chicago, who allegedly, harassed and intimidated and physically abused people to get coercions for crimes they didn't commit. And now we have a memorial for him that's going up in Washington Park. I mean, not for him, but for survivors of police brutality. So it starts at the local level, continues through college, this brainwashing. But before we let you go, I want you to talk about your new book that's coming out, Necessary Men.
Yeah, well, it's going to serialize starting next month at the American Spectator. They'll break the book up into chunks, and like once a week there'll be an episode of it that comes out. Kind of like Charles Dickens back in the day. But the book is, and it's the fourth in this series of political satire novels that I've been writing, the Mike Holman books. And this one games out Trump's friendly invasion of Cuba, where, the regime falls without firing a shot. It's super satirical. Cuban communists will not like this book. Okay. American communists really won't like this book. But everybody else, I think, will get a kick out of it. So it's been a lot of fun to write. I'm about 2/3 of the way through it. I think it's it's very timely, because what I'm hoping is that I can actually finish the book before the Cuban regime falls. Oh, yeah. So we'll see how that goes. I'm kind of dreading Trump's speech that he doesn't talk about Cuba. Because who knows what might happen. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And next month at spectator.org, you'll be able to check it out.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Scott McKay. We're going to have to leave it there. Publisher of the Hayride.com and Spectator, the American Spectator as well. And you can buy his books on Amazon as well. Scott, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Y'all have a good one.
You too. And he joined us on our Alpha Wealth Group answer line.
The stories you need to know to start your day. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
If you have unfiled taxes or are in debt to the IRS, this is important news. Did you know the IRS has programs specifically designed to help people struggling with tax debt? Powerful tax assistance programs that can save you thousands if you qualify.